Chapter 13. Once I told Zelda a story that made her cry, so I lay her on a sack with her for hours and hours until she fell asleep, and then I started writing down the African story for the Nazi officer until I fell asleep too. Now Barney is shaking me. Felix, he whispers, we've run out of water. I need you to help me find some. I sit up and put my notebook inside my shirt. I reach for my shoes and the rags to pack around my feet. Try these, says Barney. He hands me a pair of boots. I stare at them in the candlelight. They're almost new. I've never had an almost new pair of boots before. When I was little, Mom and Dad used to get my shoes from other families with bigger kids who liked reading. I put the boots on. They fit. Thanks, I say. Where did you get them? I see Barney doesn't want to tell me. I remember something he once said. You don't have to make up anything, I say. Barney smiles. I bought them, he says. 3 turnips. I stare at him, horrified. 3 turnips is a fortune. We could have made soup for all of us with 3 turnips. Water hunters need good shoes for running, he says, in case the water tries to get away. I look down at Barney's shoes. They're both split open and wound around with rope. Barney sees me looking. All right, he says quietly. I'll tell you the truth. I got you the boots because everyone deserves to have something good in their life at least once. I don't know what to say. That's one of the kindest things I've ever heard, including in stories. Thanks, I whisper, but I'm confused. Surely Barney knows that I've got lots of good things in my life, more than anyone else in the cellar, probably. Barney locks the trap door and I follow him through the dark printing factory, an empty bucket in each hand. My feet snug and grateful in my new boots. As we get close to the big rusty door, Barney suddenly blows out the candle and puts his finger on my lips. I can hear it too. Voices and footsteps out in the street. It's after curfew time. Everybody's meant to be indoors. We creep over to our window and Barney rubs a small patch within the dusty glass and we peep out. The street is crowded with people, all trudging in the moonlight, all in the same direction. Jewish people, I can tell by the armbands on their coats. Some are carrying bags and bundles. They're so close I can hear their voices, even through the glass. Yes, but where? Says a woman wearing a scarf. A man with his arm around her rolls his eyes. He looks like he's done it before, so he's probably her husband. I don't know exactly, he says. The countryside. What does it matter? For each day's work, we get a loaf of bread and sausage and marmalade. That's all that matters. The husband and wife are too far away, and I can't hear any more because their voices are mixed up with all the others. A man in a loud voice is passing the window. Please, he's saying. Which is it? Russia? Romania? Hungary? You must know where we're going. I shrink back. The person he's talking to is a Nazi soldier. Countryside, says the soldier. Beautiful, much food, easy work. I look at Barney to see if he's thinking what I'm thinking. The Nazis are taking the Jewish people to the countryside to work, farming perhaps, or looking after sheep. Anything to get their mind off books, probably. That means Mom and Dad will be going there. Barney, I whisper, can we go too? Zelda and Henrik and all of us? Barney looks as though this is the worst idea anyone has ever had in the history of the world. No, he says. But it could be great, I say. A farmer could let us live in his barn and we could make cheese and sell it. Barney isn't even listening, just peering out the window. The street outside is empty now. I can hear the last of the Jewish people and the Nazi soldiers fading into the distance. Come on, says Barney, unchaining the big door. I've got water to find. Let's go. In the cool night air, my thoughts are clear. I don't say anything more about the countryside. I know what I'm going to do. Once me and Barney have found some water and got back to the cellar, I'm going to finish writing my African story and give it to the Nazi officer and ask him which bit of the countryside Mom and Dad have been taken to. Then I'm going to wake up Zelda and we'll go there on our own. I can't believe it. Barney just walked into an apartment building without knocking. He just looked around the stairwell to make sure no one was watching, pushed the door open, and barged in. Luckily, the stairwell was deserted. Is this your apartment? I ask him. No, he says. He's saying that a lot tonight. He stops in the hallway, his shoulders slump. I see what's caught his eye. On the floor is a Jewish candlestick, the type that holds a row of candles. It's completely squashed, as if someone's trampled it. This place belongs to a friend of mine, says Barney quietly. I understand. They must have gone to work in the countryside and forgotten to lock up. I follow Barney into a room. It's an unusual sort of room. I need a moment to take it all in. The big leather chair, the 2 sinks, the robot arm drill. Now I understand. It's a dentist's surgery. See if the water's on, says Barney. I don't waste time. I take my buckets to over the sinks and turn the tap on. Nothing. It's off, I say. Barney is rummaging in cupboards and stuffing things into his pockets, metal syringes, packs of needles, small bottles filled with liquid. That's not water, is it? I say, puzzled. Barney looks at me and I get the feeling he wishes he hadn't seen. Barney looks at me and I get the feeling he wishes I hadn't seen what he's doing. It's a drug, he says. Dentists use it to stop their patients feeling pain. I know, I say. My mom had it once. Barney comes over and crouches down so his face is level with mine. I don't want you or any of the others to touch this, he says, holding up one of the little bottles. It's very dangerous. Only dentists should touch it. Why is it dangerous, I ask. If a person takes too much, says Barney, they go into a very deep sleep and never wake up. Something about the way he says it makes me shiver. But at least his patients will have something else to dull their pain when I'm in the countryside with Mom and Dad and Zelda and can't tell them stories. I remember why we're here. I'll look in the other rooms for water, I say. There's a bathroom down the hall, says Barney. We go into the bathroom and straight away I can see we're in luck. The bathtub is full of water. I scoop some out with one of my buckets. Hang on, says Barney, taking the bucket from me and tipping the water back. Somebody's had a bath in that water. It's dirty. Better not risk it. I stare at the water, confused. It's not dirty. There's just a bit soapy. It's just a bit soapy with a few hairs in it. One person's been in that, 2 tops. If Barney wants to see dirty water, he should go to an orphanage on a bath night. There's not even any grit in this as far as I can see. See if there's any in the kitchen, says Barney. I'll fill the buckets from this. He lifted the lid off the toilet tank, which I have to admit is a good idea. 2 buckets of clean water at least. I go down the hall to the kitchen, wondering why we are our cooking utensils on the hall floor. In the kitchen, things are even worse. The floor is covered with broken plates and bits of crooked food. I crouch down, wondering if Barney's going to be fussy about food that's been on the floor. Then I realize that someone else is in the room. Oh. It's a little kid about 2 in a high chair. I can't tell if it's a boy or girl because there's too much blood on the little body. Oh. I scream for Barney. He comes in running and almost falls over himself when he sees the poor, horrible sight, and then he grabs me and drags me into the hall. It's a little kid, I sob. They shouldn't shoot little kids. Shh, says Barney. He sounds like he's sobbing too. He pushes my face into his coat. Why didn't the parents do something? I sob. Why didn't they take their kid to the countryside? Barney is shaking. He hugs me very hard. Sometimes, he says, his voice shaking as well, parents can't protect their kids, even though they love them more than anything in the world. Sometimes, even when they try their very hardest, they can't save them. I can feel Barney's tears falling onto me. For a while he doesn't say anything, just strokes my head. I stroke his hand. Something tells me he needs it too. Your mom and dad loved you, Felix, says Barney. They did everything they could to protect you. Loved? Why is he saying that as if it's in the past? I'm going to find them, I say. I'm going to live in the countryside with them. I feel Barney giving a big painful sigh. There is no countryside, he says quietly. The Nazis aren't taking anyone to the countryside. They're taking the Jews away to kill them. I stare up at him. What? That's the stupidest story I've ever heard. Didn't he hear what the Nazi soldier said to the Jewish people outside the window? I kick and struggle to get myself out of his grip so I can go and find Mom and Dad before the Nazis take them to the countryside. But Barney is holding me too tight. His arms are too strong. I can't get away. It's true, Felix, he says. His voice sounds like he's at a funeral. How do you know? I yell at him. Somebody escaped from one of the death camps, he says. This man came to the ghetto to try and warn the rest of us. My head is hurting. Death camps? You're making this up, I yell at Barney. If it was true, you would have warned the people leaving tonight. I feel his chest heaving for a long time before he answers. They wouldn't have believed me, he says. They didn't believe the man from the death camp, not even after the Nazis killed him. And I need to be alive so I can take care of you and the others. It's on Barney's face, I can see it. He's telling the truth. Oh, Mom. Oh, Dad. My imagination goes into a frenzy, trying to think up ways for them to escape, places for them to hide, reasons why none of this has happened to them. Every time I start to think of something, I remember the poor little kid in the kitchen. Barney is holding me tight, and I can feel the metal syringes in his coat pocket pressing into my cheek. Suddenly, I want him to stick one of the syringes into me so I can go into a deep sleep and never wake up and never feel this bad again.